Trigger warning. This podcast contains discussions about abuse, domestic violence, and intimate partner violence. Listener discretion is advised. What you are about to hear is a true story. My story. This podcast is about me, my abusive marriage, my fight for my life, and eventual daring escape from my ex-husband and his enabling family. My name is Bebe, and I am the authenticity warrior. My discernment about what I am facing has made me a target, but I must nonetheless speak up. Hello, everybody.
Hey.
Bebe here, the authenticity warrior.
And Toro as well, checking in.
Yeah, we're back. We're back. And this episode is interesting for me. I think we spent the last couple of episodes delving really into the details about all the abuse that I endured in the hands of my ex, Paulinus, is what we've been calling him. And for me, it's been so many different feelings, actually, about this entire thing. And I've tried to listen back to some of the recordings again. And, I heard myself saying, oh, I was so shocked. Oh, my heart just fell. I was just so disappointed. I was just so alarmed. I heard myself saying those things multiple times. And, even as a listener of those recordings in my head, I'm just like, bitch, why didn't you leave? And so I can imagine the other listeners, girl, how much were you trying to die there or what? I mean, if things were so bad, why were you there for so long? And, I've been turning it over in my mind. I've been turning it, crunching on it. And I know I loved this guy. And that is what pains me the most about all of this, in that I loved an illusion. I was telling my sister the other day that we met in our very early 20s. And so that image of that guy that I met then, it left such an impression on me. Honestly, that is what sustained me through everything that I was going through, even when things were turning dark and dirty and scary and dangerous for me. I still just kept on believing that that person that I met then, way back in 2012, this can't be. So I kept on finding many other reasons and explanations. Oh, it's because the country is hard. Oh, it's because it's like this. It's because he has a bad relationship with his dad. I just kept on finding every other thing to justify his bad behavior, poor treatment of not just me, but, like I mentioned, people around us, even strangers. My mind still goes back again to the story we spoke about when we're discussing just his taking up space, his sexual abuse of not just me, but people around us, the violation of people. My mind still goes back again, Toro. I know I'm talking for a long time, but
oh man, this is your thing.
Yeah.
This is your story. Please.
Yeah, my mind goes back again to those people in his MBA class that this guy kept on masturbating. This wasn't a one-time thing, by the way. At some point, he was giving me regular updates. And I don't know. And that's what was also very shocking to me. On one hand, I'm like, are you telling me because you feel like, oh, maybe we are so close, you think you can tell me your deepest, darkest secrets? Or do you want me to put a positive spin on what it is that you're doing? But I was just so deeply uncomfortable. I'm just like, those poor people that you are there, you're violating them and they don't even know. The driver that he did it to also in the car, masturbating right there in the car with the driver there driving you. And, this is the driver that we had said that we suspected may be on the spectrum of some sort. So that this is a kind of guy that he probably can't defend himself or speak up for himself, and you violate him in such a manner. His cousins, Toro, I'm so incensed when I think about this story because I thought this guy was the victim here. So, bottom line, when he was growing up, I think he was like a preteen kind of age or whatever. In his house, his parents were the kind of people that they used to house people in their house. They didn't live in a huge house, but they used to take care of this cousin from this, this cousin from that. So when he was growing up, he had all these older cousins that lived in his house. And all of a sudden, this guy felt the need to tell me how when his older female cousins are sleeping. Whenever they were sleeping, he would go and be fondling them, fingering them and, touching them inappropriately at night. So when he was telling me this story, the way I clutched my pearls, but, because I figured, okay, they're older. So I asked, I was like, did they wake up? What was their reaction when you're doing all of this? And the way he just kind of just dismissed me, I was just like, those ones, they were enjoying it, Joe, all of that. Because I'm just like, in my head, because I'm just like, what do you mean by they were enjoying it? So at the time, the way he had responded to me, it made me feel as if, maybe this is some sort of sexual assault kind of situation that, they are older than him, for him to have been comfortable touching them and he's here telling me that they enjoyed it. Maybe it was like an abusive kind of situation. Maybe they were in on it. Is now against this whole backdrop, like just the way this whole picture just became so clear to me that, oh my God, it just jumped out to me that, it is actually possible that these female cousins of his actually did not know that this guy was doing this thing to them. That it is possible he just violated them the same way he violates all this. He gets off on violating all these people. It's possible he violated them in this manner and they were not aware. Like, I'm just so, like, the whole thing is making me so nauseous to just even imagine just the layers, like the different flavors of this guy and his taking up space and his abuse of other people. And again, this is what is very upsetting to me, is in the fact that, like, this is a pattern of behavior that has been with this guy since he was young. What it feels like to me about this relationship was each time I feel like I cannot even be shocked anymore. This guy finds it somewhere within himself to take the two of us down to a new low again as a couple. And I would just be left traumatized. And, oftentimes when he's saying these things and doing these things, it's not as if he's just saying it out of nowhere. He's using it as a way to tell me how I'm inadequate, about why I'm not pleasing him, I'm not up to par sexually, and that's why he's doing these things. You just say, and in my head, I'm just like, but that doesn't make sense though. Again, I listened to the episodes that we just finished speaking about. We recorded them. I've listened to them over and over again. And I'm just so sad that I believed so much in someone that blinded me from the full picture that I was experiencing. And the funny thing is, the moment your eyes clear and finally the puzzle makes sense, finally the pieces put together, you can finally see the picture. Oh my goodness, it's hard to go back. Like, honestly and truly, I don't even have hate in my heart for this guy. I am deeply irritated by him. Very disgusted. I want nothing to do with him. I don't even want to see him. I don't ever want us to even breathe the same air. But hate? No, it's not that I hate him. I actually feel a deep sense of just pity, because this is a human being that I don't think he can be helped. Whether he goes to therapy, whether he gets on medication, whether he has support, I feel like he's so far gone. There's no saving him. He's gone. And that's just so sad when I think about the fact that I have children with this person. That means I have to do everything to protect my boys because I don't trust this man. This guy can do anything to them, to me. So that's just the reality I'm just trying to move forward in. But yeah, listening to those episodes were hard. I wonder what your own impression was, when you try and think back on everything we spoke about, on all the abuse that we discussed.
Wow. It's just so much. Like, even as you were just spoken now, like I had so many like resonance points as you were speaking there. But before I even say anything, I just want to say that, it's incredibly moving to witness your strength in vulnerability in sharing this way with us so honestly and authentically. And, it's not all peaches and cream and roses, but you're standing and being anchored and grounded in reality, though it may not be as beautiful, but it's better than living in a dream. It's better than living through an illusion or living a distortion. like the truth will always set one free. So, a lot of what we had talked about over the last few episodes were not things I was hearing for the first time, but, doing it the way we did it and just really having everything just being painted all together all at once like that. I just realized how much it all was. And, you've been saying, oh, we talked about all the abuse. It's just some. We've only really talked about some of it. There's so much more.
We've had to be strategic so that we don't overwhelm you guys.
Yeah.
It's like, you see,
even just then, just as a fraction of it is still just so much. And, I've said it before, like, you are a combat veteran. Like, this was a war front type of a thing. Like, just survival moment to moment, like literally being like, I don't know, living in the eye of a storm or maintaining your own eye. Eye of peace in the middle of a whirlwind of just all sorts of chaos and actual danger. So also having, this just a deep sense of compassion and empathy for what you've gone through. But I'm also just so grateful you're on the other side,
that I survived.
Like, you're still here. Oh my God. So many people are not so lucky. So many family members are left behind wondering. And I'm just, grateful. I'm just also incredibly inspired at the level of strength, bravery, and courage that you demonstrated when things came down to the wire.
And it was time to act. And, Toro, you were there with me even in that moment where it was really, really 50-50. I didn't think I had the strength because I knew what was coming once I made that move, and I was scared. I want people to really, really understand this thing. What will make a mother? My baby was just 2 months old. I had just come back into the country. We had spent less than 10 days since my arrival into the country. And I had to pick up and take my 3 children with me. And we fled the country.
4 and under.
Exactly. Like, what would cause someone to do that? Like, I was in such a desperate position and I understood perfectly what was about to happen to me. I could see very clearly this man was about to literally kill me. And what was so hurtful about everything, and we will get into it in another episode, was I saw his family gather together holding the knife that this man was about to use to literally kill me, to literally stab me. I saw all their hands around that very same knife, and it was going to be a group effort. That shit terrified me to my core, because I'm not sure if I've said this already, but when this man's chaos was really, really, as they say, when the water was really about to pass Gary with this guy, what would often keep me in this marriage was I would just think about his family. And I would just be like, gosh, they don't deserve this. They've been good to me. I've never had any issues with them. They seem like good people. Like, I know that if I leave this man, it will really devastate them. And so I stayed. So to now think where in the end, when they too, they knew that, it's like this girl is not going to stay. The way their faces turned for me, the way I saw for the very first time that all that quote unquote love was all manipulation. It was all the carrot and the stick games that they were playing with me. The fact that this man's father, the day before I escaped this country, looked me bold-faced in my eye and said he's not going to tolerate divorce, and that if I should try it, he would take my children away from me. This is a man that I've seen him act mad, unrestrained around other people, including his wife, call her all sorts of names, everything. But to me, this guy used to carry me like some sort of egg. Like, sometimes I even used to be scared that, hey, why does this guy actually just like me like this? Like, why is he just taking to me? Because I've seen how he treats other people, especially those that are, insubordinate to him and all of that. So I used to even be scared sometimes by his quote unquote love and generosity. But when the guy now issued that threat, finally it all made sense. I say, oh no. These people know their son. And so all these, their good deeds, they've been doing it to keep me there. They've been trying to overcompensate. They've been trying to cover all his ills, knowing fully well the breakfast that was chopping in his hand. So they were trying to cover it, try and pretend like, oh, they are not like him. Because they themselves have witnessed this guy disrespect me, abuse me. And so when he now issued that threat to me, the way the thing just clicked in my head, I said, oh, I made a goddamn mistake here. These people were never my ally. They never took me as a daughter. I was just a simple pawn to help them maintain their image, to keep shooting at grandchildren for them. You know, this man had actually told me he expects 7 from me. And, I actually chuckled. I thought he was laughing. His face was serious.
Oh, wow.
This is Paulinus's dad. He said he expects 7 children from me. Me, really, I know the person that I am. I'm like, yeah, there's no way any of that is going to happen. But bottom line is that, like, as at the time I was fleeing, guys, I cannot explain to you guys the level of danger that I was in. And I just thank God that I escaped. Because my goodness, no, these people would have finished me.
I do want to respond to something that you talked about earlier just now. You were speaking about how you felt like there were newer lows of shock, disgust, just, wow. And I just want to say that, first of all, just externalize a lot of that. Because with somebody who is abusive, somebody who is taking up space, there is no bottom. The lows there will always be some new low to excavate with them. And I think in questioning, some people would say, just turn away from that completely. Don't victim blame, don't self-blame. But it's not that you're victim blaming or self-blaming, because I think you've spoken about several times how forgiveness and forgiveness of self has been a huge theme for you so far in the journey. But I think that, yes, critically and as objectively as possible, asking those questions is what healing is. And I think that you'll find that as you get closer and closer to the root of it, like for so many of us who are trauma survivors, you'll find things like childhood themes of neglect and abandonment and, all some such stuff. So that's to say that, everyone's story is different. We all go through different paths into self-discovery. And, we should be gentle on ourselves as we just navigate through, as we become more aware, become more conscious, know where the boundaries of ourself and what we allow into our spaces are. That's, part of the beauty of life is the discovery of things. And sometimes it's energetically, it's like limbo. How low can you go? Before you two, you're like, please, my back. I think I'm ready to stand. So, yeah.
Like, even as I look back now, I know that, my goodness, we could have gone right to the devil's butt crack in this marriage. Like, and I'm so glad I did not follow that man.
Sometimes you have to explore the frontiers of your own limits too. Just to know for yourself as a soul. Not to say that you want to dwell at those extremes or ever want to go back there, but it's just be like, it's just all part of the journey. And, infusing some amusement and curiosity, like even in the deepest, darkest of shadows, I think is the part of the beauty of what makes us human.
Okay. I think that was quite good for an intro. So this episode, guys, we're going to be changing things up. I mean, we spent the last couple of episodes talking about my email, the things that I then fleshed out from that email. So as you can imagine, you send an email out, there will be some sort of response. And honestly, I didn't quite know what response I was going to get back. To be honest, I even blocked all emails. I blocked Paulinus's email, everybody in his family, even my own family, I blocked because I didn't want to hear anything from anybody. I didn't want anybody to convince me about anything. So I blocked everybody. But I don't even know what happens, like with Google or something. Maybe there's a time limit. I don't even know. But by like day 2, I just started receiving emails from people, like responses. So, of course, I'm sure you're all curious about what Paulinus's response to my November 21st email was. But before we do that, I think it's important that I read the email again, just so that people shall just know what it was that he was responding to.
And once again, this is the email that you sent right after your escape from the country, once you felt safe enough to like notify people just about the current situation.
Yes. So I wrote, Paulinus, today I choose to dismantle a shame that is not and was never mine to carry by shattering my silence on the dynamic of our relationship. I have been severely mishandled, mistreated, devalued, and taken for granted over the entire course of our relationship and marriage. For almost 10 years, you have been a toxic and abusive partner in many horrifying ways. Physical assault, sexual harassment, coercion, and continuous threats to pursue other sexual partners, and your continued weaponization of infidelity. Extended violent outbursts of extreme and scary rage and anger, relentless emotional manipulation and verbal abuse, bullying and intimidation as tactics of control, reckless and dangerous behavior as a means of punishment. For example, purposely dangerously driving with the children and myself while in a rage, financial neglect. On several occasions, not even the presence of the children nor any of my visible pregnancies could deter your blind rage, and there was no effort on your part to model appropriate behavior, thereby terrifying and distressing the boys. At your hands, the boys and I have been in distinct life-threatening incidents, and your continued unchecked behavior has worn me out. In tolerating and accommodating all this, I became a person I no longer recognized. I will no longer allow myself and my children to be subject to a toxic and unhealthy environment and exposed to your barbarous behavior. I am separating myself from you and this marriage, and there is absolutely no room for reconciliation on this. I am done. The boys and I are safe and well. I will reach out to you shortly regarding our family dynamic moving forward. Right now, I'm taking some space and I will not respond to any contact attempts from yourself or anyone else before I am ready. Regards, baby. Yeah, so this email that I just read out was sent out on the 21st of November, 2021. And boy, did it make a splash. And we've already spoken about it in the other episode, so we won't get too much into it. But the bottom line is, this email is received, and of course, chaos breaks out. Ultimately, though, my family, they are assured of my safety. They are assured I'm well. And, immediately their focus and their gaze turns over to Paulinus and his family. And these people were glaringly absent. My parents had to literally force them to a family meeting. And, they were dragged there kicking and screaming, demanding, what's the agenda of the meeting? What are they coming there to do? And even if they come, they're not available until December. Or no, they have to go and pray first. And no, they have to go to their village to go and bring people. And my parents were like,
an event.
Yeah, no,
hall should be.
Yeah,
rented.
my parents were like, look, this is COVID. Like, I'm not having all sorts of people up in my house. They were like, if your house is not big enough, they should go and rent an event hall so that they can accommodate all the people they want to bring. My parents are just like, this one that you're doing, thank God. I asked mommy and daddy and they were just like, look, the body language of these people, the way they handled this whole situation, for them, they were just like, my God, my daughter has been enduring. They were just like, the way they behaved, actually, they already believed me, but he more than validated my email to them because they just couldn't understand how poorly behaved his family was. They just acted like bottom barrel, I don't even know. Anyway, so all of that was happening, but like you guys know, they were forced and they attended the family meeting. And then when they got there, they pretty much scattered the meeting. They didn't let anybody get a word in. They kept on denying, deflecting, interrupting. At some point, the head of family on my side were just like, look, we're not going to get anywhere. So the meeting shall just ended. It ended there, but these people now started to issue threats to my parents that, look, Paulinus has his own response too. And if they don't release me and the children, that there's a limit to what they can do, that Paulinus and his friends have a response to my email. And my parents were like, look, whatever it is that Paulinus feels he wants to get off his chest, he should go ahead and send an email. They have nothing to hide. They don't have any skeleton in their own closet, and neither does their daughter. But Of course, they were not pacified by that. They kept on huffing and puffing and trying to issue threats that they know about our family and all of that and all of that. My parents were unmovable because to them, the things that I wrote about in my email, it was alarming. And they were just in a state of gratitude that this girl did not die there. Thank God. Like all this one that this Paulinus and his family was doing, like it was irrelevant to them. They didn't care. So in the end, off the back of a second meeting where it was Paulinus's dad and my dad and a friend. My dad had taken his friend along because this Paulinus's dad has a reputation of like holding people up for 4-hour meetings and rambling on and will not let anybody speak and will just wear you out. So my mom insisted that, look, my dad must attend with a friend of his. So my dad and his friend, they went to this meeting. Of course, the meeting was 4 good hours. And this guy was just talking and trying to manipulate and say and whatever. Bottom line, he now accused my dad of hiding me and the children. And if my dad doesn't release us, Paulinus is going to release his dastardly email that would finally expose me and expose our family. And my dad said, look, go. I was just so proud of my dad because my dad was not even huffing and puffing. It was not even like an ego. I don't even know. You know how sometimes it can be like a cockfight with men. My dad was like, look, see, anything that Paulinus wants to do, let him just go right ahead and do it. If he feels that is what will bring his wife and children home, then he should by all means release that email. He has nothing to hide and neither does his daughter. So literally, because these people, they think they are James Bond or whatever, at the stroke of midnight on the day of that meeting, they now released that Paulinus' email. They sent it to all sorts of people. Even myself, I received a copy. The email was addressed to me, but honestly and truly, guys, that email was definitely not for me because it's not me that he's saying all these things to, all these lies to. Like, he was clearly just playing to the gallery with his email. And so that is what we're going to now delve into today on this episode, to just kind of, because again, these are his own words. Oh, nobody is putting, and I'm so glad he sent this email because nobody's putting words in his mouth. It's not them say. By his own hands, he typed these things out and he wrote it and he sent it out. So this is his own defense here for people who like to have a balanced view that maybe I've been saying whatever. So this is from Paulinus. So this is what we're going to now read and dissect. And of course, just call bullshit out, like, please. The email was just filled with lies. If at all there was a truth, it will now be exaggerated and just turned into something else. But I think it's important that we dissect this email. And so that's just what we're going to do now. Before we do that, Toro, I actually just want to get, what was your general impression of the email? Because as you know, I didn't even read the email. I just read this email in its entirety for the first time in preparation for this podcast, because I think I just read the first couple of paragraphs and I was just like, ugh, I beg, it's not me that is going to read this. I sent it to my lawyers first and then I was just like, I beg, and I never read it. But my sister did. So I want to get your impression, when you first read that email. What did it do for you? What did it do to you?
Yeah, I read it at the time that it was sent out and I read it again more recently, just before us doing this. So, not much has changed in between from the way I felt about it before and, upon rereading it. And, there was a bit of setup. So I can't say that I went in completely blank because I was aware of the so-called threats that had been levied and this was supposed to be some kind of silver bullet and whatnot. And so when the email came in, your email was a succinct 3/4 pager, a half page. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. This email was just long. I was like, oh my God, already. So just looking at it, it was ridiculous, really. It was ridiculous. It was ludicrous. I would call it laughable if it wasn't so reprehensible. Just I finished it and it just leaves you with the ick. Just feeling ick,
you need to go take a shower after.
Yeah, why? And then the writing was just abhorrent. So on top of everything, it was I have to mentally red pen this shit just to even extract
through
the meaning.
Grammatical errors, spelling,
yes, just poorly constructed sentences, just stream of consciousness, tenses, and just everything all over the place. I'm sorry that I'm a bit of a stickler for shit like that too, but I was just it was, It was ridiculous.
I think when I read this email the second time, like I think the general idea that I got from this email, because like I said, guys, this email, though it was addressed to me, the email wasn't for me. This was him playing to the gallery for all the people he had copied to the email. Because the blatant lies, it clearly cannot be to me when you and I both know the truth. It's not me you're trying to convince of these lies that I had 7 people working for me in the house, 7 domestic staff. It's not for me that you're going to tell that kind of bull-faced lie to. It's for the people that don't really know us or had never really visited our house or whatever. But the general idea that I got from the email was this guy was just so incensed that he was just trying to scandalize me in the eyes of people. Like he wanted people to be looking at me funny, like, You know, the one thing I've gotten to understand about abusive people like this is because they know themselves. So he was trying to muddy the waters so that it's the two of us that end up looking funny.
Like, yeah, like there was just, if anybody like has any sense of critical anything, like there was a lot of just clear projection. You know, I was actually just quite disgusted because there was just like these running themes. Like I said, it was a very long email. So yeah, recurring themes of just blatant like homophobia, misogyny, I don't know, some kind of religious, I don't even know, like, and I'm just like,
bottom line, he tried to hit where, you know, I guess, especially in Nigerian society, if you want to hit a woman, there are certain pain points that, you know, if you hit her there, society will be like, it's true, that woman.
Yeah, like things that were just clearly like inflammatory or like scandalizing.
Yeah. So that's what he tried to do. True or not, he just came out and was just, you know, when someone carries a machine gun and it just everywhere. So, of course, if you're trying to hit a woman in the Nigerian society, where do you go? Number one, me, I'm a proud feminist, and that's something that is known about me. So, of course, he came for me about that, my feminism, but then, you know, just spoke about it in a very disgusting manner. Then, what else did he come for? He came for my appearance, my looks, tried to call me ugly, tried to call me manly, things like that. What else did he come for? He claimed that I'm an atheist. You know, and again, this is not like Nigerian society. When, you know, women are the ones that are known to carry scarf and be in church. So he's in here in his email calling me an atheist and I don't pray and this and that.
And that wasn't a bit to like attack your morality.
Yeah, exactly. Because, you know, he had written some inflammatory things. So the icing on top, the cherry on top was not she's even an atheist. So there's that one there. And then what else did he come for? Came for my sexuality.
Families, mental health.
Yeah. You know, that mental health one is even the one that's really and truly, like, it's such a low blow because, again, like, you know, we'll get into it when we're actually breaking these things down. But those are all the areas that you touched. Mental health, my appearance, my looks, sexuality, my religion, my family. And so he hit all those points and had some really crazy things to say. And so that's what we'll now be dissecting bit by bit. So the first thing we're going to address from his email was his response to what I said about his physical abuse.
Right. So actually, like, you were very specific in what you called out. Like, you had a list or so. And he had a response or rebuttal or some, you know, for each thing that you brought up. So his response,
you literally put the heading, physical abuse.
Yeah.
You now ramble on. Sexual abuse, you now ramble on. So, of course, you remember the way I read out my email? There are bullet points of all the things that he did. So he now responded to those bullet points in, you know, his long paragraph by paragraph by paragraph under each of those bullets. So the first thing that we're going to bring up now is his response to the physical abuse, which surprisingly, Toro, it was the shortest response. And that to me is telling of his guilt.
Oh, right.
Because this guy just came to just rely on...
You did it or you didn't do it. There isn't much room.
Exactly. There's no... You know, is that you're saying, no, I didn't do it. Not all this wordplay he came to come and do and kind of design here.
He essentially denied it and then was very specific with his wording.
His wording.
Stuff like, since I married her.
So exactly. So he said things like, since I married my wife, I have never laid a finger on her, knowing fully well. You know, he chose his words carefully because he himself knows that he strangled me 6 weeks to our wedding. So that's why he was very careful to say, since I married my wife. I have never laid a finger on her.
And this choking incident was a serious one.
It was a serious one. Like, if you haven't listened to my episode on physical abuse, please go back and listen to it. Like, I describe it. I thought I was going to die.
And like, again, studies have shown that strangulation is a serious indicator for homicide later on down the line.
Yeah.
In these
like if
physically
you stay,
abusive relationships.
Exactly. Like, if you stay, it's like there's this looming dark cloud of possible death in the hands of your partner once they've actually strangled you before. Once they've strangled you before, the chances of them actually killing you later on, it skyrockets. Mm-hmm. So, and that was the dark cloud I used to feel around this guy. But before getting into that, so he was very careful with his wordplay. Then another one he said was, "Oh, I have never injured her, and that if I did, why didn't she maybe go to the police or go to the hospital or something like that?" And you know, when he said, "I've never laid a finger," because he knows that he literally was using a towel to whip me and hit me continuously. And of course, both face lie, because this guy was pushing my head, twisting my nose, hitting me continuously as he was, spewing all his garbage, calling me monkey, disgusting, like stupid, foolish, like bastard bitch. Like, that's what he was doing as he was physically assaulting me. So again, it was very interesting to me that was even his shortest defense. He just came in there and was just like, "Oh, I didn't do it. And if I did, why didn't she report to the police?"
And then he did mention that towel incident, but he did not describe it like that, like he was whipping you with it. Well, he said, he came in with some kind of false equivalency that, "Oh, you threw an object at him and then he threw a towel at you." And that's not what happened.
That's not what happened. And then he conflated two very different events. So if you guys remember, again, when I'm speaking about the physical abuse, when I was pregnant with my second child, he was so abusive. Like, I got so incensed. I actually stood up. The Kleenex that I was using to dry my tears, I tossed it in his direction. And I was just like, "Wouldn't you stop? You're such a bully." So I said that. So is that Kleenex tissue that in his email, he now came to put, she threw an object. When you say object, it's not tissue that will come to mind. You probably think, maybe she threw an iron or threw a hammer. So you see, he was trying to be very slick that, "Oh, she threw an object at me and then me too, I threw a towel at her."
And then we settled it amicably.
And these are two separate events, because the tissue that I threw, this was in 2018.
Just before he sequestered you or false imprisonment in your own house, locked you away while you were pregnant and thirsty.
Yeah, before he locked me away. So is now in 2020 when he now had his just disgusting, just rubbish that, his abusive incident with me, that he was physically assaulting me and all of that he was now hitting me with his towel. And a towel, like when you're whipping somebody, you're inflicting pain. That one is dirty. You're not, Sabi, what do you think you're doing there? So that's what he's now conflating. So to the audience or to the gallery that he's playing to, he now did as if, "Oh, maybe I threw an object and then he threw a towel and then we settle it amicably." The guy should get out. Anyway, so that was his response. And I think we've addressed it here. So we'll just move on to the next point.
Right. So the next thing we're going to address that he responded to was the topic of sexual harassment and abuse. And once again, much like the physical assault, he was not 1 ounce of accountability to be had here. And this is where he really displayed his homophobia in an attempt to smear you, via how it'll be received in Nigeria. But he talks about you exploring your possible asexuality and throwing that out there as an accusation that, "Oh yeah, she's now a member of the LGBTQ community and no longer just, an ordinary woman that I met in church." And, he had all these backward things to say about, the role of women in sex and how your wife is supposed to be sexually satisfying the husband no matter what kind of thing. And again, it was just utterly ridiculous. He had, I don't even know if it was sarcastic or if it was actually being serious, this suggesting a sexual surrogate since everything else in the house is outsourced to somebody anyways. And I beg, it was very unserious.
Yeah, again, his email wasn't for me. He was trying to play to what he felt would maybe shock the Agbalagbas that are reading the email, because he copied my parents in the email. He was trying to play to his audience there. So like my sister already rightly said, he just basically came for my sexuality and, saying derogatory things like, "Oh, she's not an ordinary woman." He even called me a homosexual too. He's a member of the LGBT community and, she's asexual. Because again, he's response was even so contradictory because, okay, on one hand, he's calling me asexual and unable to fulfill his needs. Then in literally the very next paragraph, he's now then trying to defend and say that my accusations of him being sexually abusive are a lie because he doesn't even demand sex from me at all, that he's so busy, he works so much that, in fact, he even feels like he was the one starving me off of sex and all of that. And that, again, just double speak. He's talking out of two sides of his mouth. And then the final thing was that he claimed that, in fact, I was charging him to have sex, that I started to exploit him, that he had to pay in order to have sex with me. And honestly, when I read it, I started laughing. So I'm just going to address those things point by point. His allegations of me being a member of the LGBTQ community and that all because I'm asexual and all of that. This was sometime April 2021. I was pregnant with my third child. I was still very sick. My hyperemesis gravidarum was no joke. And this guy would just be on my matter about this whole sex thing. So I was just, when you're just on YouTube and, things just pop up on your feed or whatever. So this video about asexuality came up and I watched the video, and Toro, I started crying because I said, oh my God, like it felt like he was speaking to me. It felt like, oh my God, so is this why I've just felt, incompatible with this guy? So he came back from work that day and I shared it with him and I said, hey, look, maybe this could be the reason why it seems like you can never be satisfied. And to be honest, I believe I've tried my best, but I can't continue like this. Like your constant harassment, your constant just like, hey, right, you're not doing enough. This one, that one, hey, I want to start having sex with other people. Like from like the second year of our marriage, this guy had been pressuring me to let him have sex with other people. At some point, he even started to even beg me to start having sex with other people that, hey, he wants to watch and all of that. But in my head, I'm just like, look, this is not what I signed up for. This is not the kind of marriage that I said I wanted to have. Like, if you want to be polyamorous, like, go right ahead. But like, why did you come into the belly of RCCG? Being a church girl that I was. And it's now me, you want to now start turning into something that I'm not. Of course, over the years, my own views have even changed. Like, I'm not even as religious as I used to be. And I'm a bit more liberal now. But my point is, from the second year of our marriage, this guy just used to alarm me with his requests and overwhelm me and try and shame me and make me feel a certain kind of way. So all those feelings bubbled up when I now watched that video. And I was just like, could this be what it is? Could this finally explain why things have just been so tough with this guy in that sex arena?
And you were just questioning. You hadn't decided on anything regardless. This was just something
Exactly.
You were just exploring and decided to share with your partner. I think it really needs to be point blank stated from what you said, like that was very concerning and very alarming for me. His sexual behavior ran the gamut from sexual harassment up to and including rape.
Yeah.
Consistently. So
I like the fact that you just brought up the fact that, to be honest, my sexuality, I still don't even know what that is. This guy has been my only sexual partner. You guys know I was a virgin when I got married and I haven't had any sex since. So like my mind is not even there because of just the way my life looks right now. So I'm still in that area of exploring. I'm starting to even understand that part of what made my body shut down was actually the trauma of having to have sex with somebody that was abusive to me.
Yeah, and abusing you there, even in the arena of sex as well.
Exactly.
Like you're being sexually abused.
So like, I understand that, look, there's no sleeping with the enemy. Even if your mind, your brain, because the brain is very intelligent, it can convince you of all sorts of things, but your body does not lie.
Score.
Your body cannot join you in your delusion. So my body, of course, was repulsed by this guy. Wanted nothing to do with this guy, which is why, he tried to make it seem as if, hey, why is he always begging me and all of that. But this guy would do some crazy shit to me all day, all week. And then he would just kind of show up to my room just wanting the sex. And I'm just like, bro, do you understand what I mean, guys? Like, there's no way. Where's the foreplay? Where's the love? Like, this guy, I used to even say it to his face, like, I feel like you hate me. This guy would show me hate from morning till night. And then at night, he would now bring that his dirty fingers and want to be rubbing up on somebody. And I'm just like, for where? So anyway, So I had just shared with him that, look, maybe this could be the reason why it seems like we're incompatible. And so for me, it is actually just very dirty to just imagine that this is how he now chose to weaponize it in his email. But I personally wasn't moved because I know the truth about what it is that I shared with this guy and what it is that I am and still discovering. And there's no shame in it. So that was bottom line, his own response. Then the next thing I think I want to tackle actually is I was exploiting him. I was making him pay for sex and all of that. It's even funny to me because especially knowing how this guy actually raped me, how much did this guy even freaking pay? What did he even pay? So if you guys remember the sexual abuse episode, I spoke about how this guy manipulated me, forced me, and then actually raped me, anal sex and all of that. Like he pinned me there. And literally our very next sexual encounter, he was already saying he wants to do anal again. And I'm just like, Oga, like not with the trauma that I'm still trying to get over there. So of course, some time goes by and then he starts his whining again about anal sex and all of that. And I'm just like, look, bro, that thing, it was so painful. And I was just like, look, even if you pay me, I think to me, just given the level of depravity in that house, I tried to say what I felt was a ridiculous figure that, the guy would just leave me alone.
And this was jest.
Yeah, this was in jest. And I was just like, look, I think I said pay 250K into my account right now. If you know you want to have anal sex. Guys, if you see the shock when this guy, he was like, okay now. And he sent it. Like, guys, on one hand, in my head, I already had to start computing. I said, should I do the whole na joke and send this money back? Or, because in my head, I was already calculating all the problems that this 250K was going to solve in this house. Like, and that's the level of depravity. Like, I speak about the financial neglect, how, like, even eating sardine in that house. Eating combi. Even my nanny will be begging me that, madam, we must chop meat today. That even she self, she tired. So in my head, I had to do a quick calculation that, okay, maybe I should just brave this thing one more time and try and, just get through it. So, of course, it happened again a second time. But guys, that shit was too painful. And honestly, it wasn't worth it. It really wasn't. So, and I think this happened just one other time, twice that this guy actually did it. And by that third time, I just told him that, look, I'm sorry, I can't. That I don't care. Of course, he got angry. He was like, he's going to go and start doing it outside though. That what's the big deal? And all of that. Even when he was even sending the money, he had passed a comment that now kind of makes me shudder. Because when he first sent that money, he was like, I think he passed a comment that, this is actually hot, that he feels like I'm a prostitute and, he's paying a prostitute. And that in fact, he even likes it. So on one hand, I'm like, whether you like it or not, that's your business. This 250K is solving something for me. So I didn't think too much of it. But in retrospect, like, just see the kind of guy I was dealing with. So,
and that's why he threw it out there to the family to call you a whore.
Yeah.
But that's the thing about men who hate women and like misogynists as such. Oga, it is the demand that is,
it's fueling the supply.
The foundation of this market. So you are abusing somebody who is getting a bag. But you that you're paying for it, like, what does that make you then? So
bottom line, Isha just now weaponized this in his email that saying he was paying for sex and all of that. And again, I know this email isn't from me, but I can just imagine like my parents reading the email.
Yeah, like that's what I mean.
Like they'll just be like, please,
what's even new? What is even new? Excuse me. Your mother is transactionally extracting what she needs and paying for it with sex to your father. Like, please, what's
guys,
new here?
If I knew that this guy was going to bring this thing out in the email, honestly, number one, I should have charged more. And number two, because that 250K is not as if I even felt like, I went to Dubai and was shaking my ass on a yacht without 250K. Honestly, I would have felt better. But is it not still to buy the same beans and gari and to literally take care of this freaking house that we're all living in? That's where the 250K went into. Buy fuel, buy gas, buy this, buy that. Take care of you and everybody else in this house.
Whip it out right away there for anal, but like, oh yeah, open your purse any other time.
Yeah.
Is like, oh, so you are having it like that. Oh, really?
I was so shocked, Toro. I was so shocked because the way the guy was so stingy and tight-fisted in that house, I couldn't get anything out of this guy. He will bring out one dirty white paper like this. You bring out a pen, you start ruling. Oh yeah, you said you need what for what? Like there was a time that he literally sat us down and a sheet of paper, it wasn't even a book. It was like printer paper. He brought it out. He drew a table. He now started calculating. Oh yeah, internet, DSTV, how much? Why are you paying for that package? And guys, we were paying for, I think the cheapest package was 1.5, which is what we were paying for before with DSTV.
Girl.
Then, of course, as the boys, started growing, I think I wanted to have more cartoon options for them. So I think I moved it to the 2.5 option. That's what the guy was there redlining for me, that saying, hey, why are we using this package?
Okay, please, can we move on to the next thing? Because this is just making my skin crawl now.
So the final response really is just utter entitlement to my body and just trying to reap where he did not sow. Like, yeah, you're married, but it is not a blank check to literally use someone as your sex toy or to objectify someone. More so, again, like, guys, like, look at the landscape of the marriage I was in. And this guy had such a ferocious appetite for the most fringe and the most, I want to do you like this. And just like, where is the love? Like, I think that for me too as well was why I had such a pit in my stomach every time I had to be sexual with this guy, is because I could feel that there was no love here. He was just using my body to get off.
Yeah, objectification.
But anyway, that was his own response to the sexual abuse. So the next one we're now going to talk about is his response to extended violent protests and outbursts of extreme and scary rage and anger. So I had put that there as one of the bullet points, that this guy was just unhinged in his rage and anger. And so he responded there saying, I'm not a madman. I'm only a social drinker. And then he just went off that if indeed I was so scary, how come I never told my parents? How come I never told my siblings? How come I never told our pastor? And that since I never told them, then right now that I'm saying this, then it's kind of like a figment of my imagination or something along those lines. Because again, this is a yes or no kind of thing.
And it's very curious to me that he brings up drinking out of nowhere where no one even mentioned.
Do you know, Toro, that is actually the biggest thing here, in that I never mentioned his drinking, as alarming as it was, because I just even become so numb to it that, funny enough, it's not even me that brought up the drinking. It was my nanny that brought up the drinking to my mom, and that how she was always so concerned. She even used to tell me that, madam, this organ is drinking. But me, I didn't even bring it up because I'm just like, the issues talk by. Like, where?
So you're saying this guy was like constantly like with alcohol, just drunk, or?
You know how I mentioned to you guys that like when we met, this guy had told me he doesn't drink. We used to bond over drinking tea. We drank tea pretty much the entire time we were dating. It was not when we got married that this guy started to show up with one bottle, two. Before I knew it, this guy was now showing up consistently with bags of alcohol. He would just go to the supermarket, pick all sorts of heavy alcohol, even the cheap ones again, because he was definitely not buying all them Hennessy or anything. You know those cheap ones, those ones that all them, I didn't want to say that one, and the Agberos drink. He would go and buy those ones and come home, especially on a Friday. So that weekend, as at 2021, it was not even the weekends anymore. During the week, sometimes he would wake up and take like 2 shots. That's how he was starting his day. So that's so interesting to me, that the fact that it had become so normalized to me, I didn't even bring it up in my email. And because with everything that happened, I would have brought it up. This is someone that would drink to the point of passing out, vomiting on himself. I was so pissed at this guy when he did this thing. We had gone to his village one December. This was actually 2019. We had gone to the village one December for Christmas. This was like the day before we were to leave Ekiti and come back to Lagos. We had gone to some party. we were supposed to go back home, and he insisted that no, he wanted to stay behind, that he has some business. I guess it was Ekiti socialites or whatever that were at that party, that he wants to make some contact or whatever. He had made it seem as if he needs to stay behind for business.
Mm-hmm.
So grudgingly, Aisha left with the children and we went back to their house in Ekiti. This guy did not show up. 12, 1, I was calling him. He didn't show up. I even slept off. Only for me to want to go to the washroom. I didn't even sleep in the room that would usually sleep. I think I even slept in his sister's room because I didn't want to be alone or whatever. So I went upstairs. I went to the room that would usually stay to try and pee, and I saw the guy on the floor. He had vomited everywhere, passed out. I was even trying to wake him. Like he could not even wake up. I was so disgusted because the room door was wide open. The children, when they wake up first thing in the morning, they run to our room. So this was 3 a.m. and my children are early risers. They wake up like 6. So if I did not come upstairs at the time that I did, it should have been my children that have seen that guy there on the floor, passed out, drunk in his own vomit. Like I was so angry with this guy because I was even just so tired. The last thing I wanted to do right now was to be cleaning somebody up. But I had to, the whole place was stinking. I did everything, clean this guy up. Not one word did this guy say to me the following day. He acted as if it didn't happen. And I had to call him out. I'm like, hey, you said something business. Like, what the hell? Like, how did you even get home? Because that's another thing this guy used to do. He would drink, he would drive, and I'll be trying to caution him and he'll be getting angry at me that how long has he been driving? That blah, blah, blah. He shall just shut me down. So I will feel like I can't even get a word in. So of course, this time was no different. He got all defensive that, hey, what's the big deal? Other people were there drinking. Why am I making a mountain out of a molehill? He's not the one that drove himself. It's this person that drove him home. He shall just deflected. I'm just like, okay, but this is where you were though. The boys could have seen you. He shall just try to just make it seem as if I'm just being ridiculous. I'm just exaggerating that. Why am I on him? I should get off him, kind of thing. But I was so upset. So instances like this, the fact that he's the one that brought up the drinking, that is not even giving me the opportunity to actually now say these ones. Because honestly, again, this email, I had to send it out so quickly. If not, I'd have put that drinking there.
So did the drinking, did it have an effect on his demeanor? Did it exacerbate his rage? And
this is someone that already seemed like he had a gripe with the world, even without drinking, getting angry so easily, raging out over the simplest of issues. But what was very dangerous to me about when this guy drank was it felt he was fully unhinged. Like when he doesn't drink and he's raging and he's angry, it feels like he's trying to destroy you. Like you can see the intentionality behind his anger and his actions, and he's breaking this and punching that. But when he's drinking, he's doing all of that, but I don't even feel like there's anybody inside there. It feels like he's on co-pilot or something. Autopilot. So it even feels even more dangerous.
Right. Like there's no check.
Like there's nobody here operating this vehicle. This huge, massive body of his that is moving about, thrashing things. It doesn't even feel like there's anybody in there anymore. It feels like his body is the one just doing it. So that's what even feels dangerous. And sometimes I used to just think to myself, and that's why I'll be so still. Because I'm just like, hey God, let this guy not touch me in a way that will cause me to die right now. Or push me in some way, I will go and slam my head on this floor and that's how I will die. That thing used to scare me. So it's so funny that in my trying to say that, yeah, this guy has serious anger issues that everybody knows about. Like this one, I don't even have to, you know what? If anybody ever finds out who I am, who the parties are in this thing, you will know that I'm not lying. I'm not. So for him to not try and stand here and pretend and say that, if indeed I felt he had anger problems, why didn't I tell my family? Why didn't I tell my friends? Guys, I've already described what it is to be in an abusive space. And then you've been groomed to want to protect this person's interest. You've been groomed to not expose the shame. But with his own hand, he will even be exposing the shame. Like I said, getting bold-faced drunk and lying down there in his own vomit there for people to stumble on him. Thank God I'm the one that got there first and saw him there. It was that same December that this guy verbally abused me. His dad was hosting guests and he ran from where he was and was like, what is the matter? His dad was shook. So for him to now come and be standing here and be trying to, again, that's why I said that this email isn't for me. It's clearly not for me. This is for the other people that he had copied in his email. So I won't spend too much time on this, but that was just his half-ass response. And I think I've dissected that part enough.
Mm-hmm.
So the next thing was my saying, talking about, his relentless emotional manipulation, his verbal abuse, just the psychological abuse, guys. Like, my goodness, when I think about it again, it's because I loved him. And so he weaponized it. Like, he used the love that I had for him to literally just harm me. And he knew he could get away with harming me because you just be offering up all the grace, all the forgiveness, because again, if you say you want to hold on with the level of chaos, by the time you're still holding on to this one, he had already brought another thing again for you. Like, where is the time to even truly get over things? Where's the time to even truly, so you just shove it down somewhere and just like, you know what, I can't deal with this. And so for him to, again, his response was just subpar. All he just came there to say was, he doesn't know what I'm talking about and I'm just trying to smear him. He now started to profess his love, that if there's anybody that has loved their wife, it is him. That's almost as if there's nobody that has loved their wife more than he has loved his own wife, kind of thing. But what was actually interesting about his response here was he now flipped it and now said, if there's anybody that has been emotionally abused in our relationship, that it is him. Then he now brought up my going to a nude beach.
Yes, but he didn't even phrase it that way. I think he sensationalized it by saying something along the lines of, do we know that you've been going to nude parties and taking photos publicly nude while pregnant with our
third child,
unborn child. Like,
I'm so glad you actually remember what he said, because again, it was so difficult even reading the email. But that's basically what he said, that if anybody had been emotionally abused, it's him, that see what I put him through. That while I was pregnant with our third child, I was busy attending nude parties and taking nude photos and, basically maybe smearing his image or whatever. I don't know how that connects to emotional abuse here. What was so interesting about this thing is that this is actually the cocoa of the silver bullets that his father was threatening daddy with, saying that we know some things about her and we're going to expose her and all of that. When my dad was telling me the story, as this man was talking to my dad and saying, hey, that he's just trying to protect me, that let him not say what it is that I've been doing. And my dad was just like, say it. Let me hear. Abi, because if it is this quote unquote silver bullets that you're trying to say, maybe it justifies what it is that your son did to my daughter. Let me hear what exactly it is. So the man now said it. Paulinus's father at that meeting with my dad now said, she went to a nude beach. Did you know that? No, actually, he didn't even say, did you? He said, she went to a nude beach. Like, can you imagine?
Mm-hmm.
My dad actually like kind of blinked and like paused. I was like, nude beach. Hey, I know now. She told me. Mm-hmm. My dad said the man like froze and he was like, what? My dad was just like, hey, Abby. Mm-hmm. She actually told me when she came back from the nude beach, she actually called me right after and she told me that, guess what, daddy, guess what I did today, kind of thing. And his dad was like, hey, and what did you have to say about that? My dad was just like, this is a 30-something-year-old woman, for goodness sake, Emma Gbamio. If she says she's going to nude beach, or she has even gone and come back. What exactly do you want me to say about that? She's cuckoo Canadian. She's in a foreign country. They are going to nude beach. So what is it? But his dad was just so incensed that my dad was not angry.
They didn't care, yeah.
And he was even blindsided by the fact that I am the one that even told my dad that I went there. But because, them in their own family dynamics, everybody is there constantly hiding from themselves. They don't. So he was so shocked by the level of transparency that I have with my dad. And, to even now put the cherry on top of all of this, Toro, the day I went to the nude beach, because I'd never been before, it just felt like something interesting that I felt like I wanted to do. I mean, here I am, I'm pregnant, I'm by myself. I was just exploring all sorts of things. I would take long walks. I would go here, I would go there. And then I said I wanted to go to a nude beach. I just felt like it's something I wanted to do. I even told Paulinus about it. His family, they don't know this, because they're there bringing it out as silver bullets. But it was Paulinus himself that even recommended that beach to me.
The specific one you went to?
This particular beach that I went to, I think is in Toronto, Ireland. You even have to take a ferry to get there. So he's the one that told me that, that he knows a beach I can go to now, that he used to go there back in his Toronto days. That in fact, he was a staple there. Because this particular nude beach at night, it turns into like an orgy fest. Like it's just wild. So he told me that that's what he used to go there to go and do and everything. Again, I was in my third trimester at this point. To me, it's only the nude aspect we are going to go and do. I just want to enjoy the amenities there. So I went during the day and it was quite fine. It was mostly retirees that were there. There was nothing about it, but it just felt like such a beautiful experience that people were there and they were just free in their bodies. Like all sorts of body types were there. And for me, I loved that experience. I couldn't stop talking about it. So much so, when I came back from the nude beach, his own sister, Pepeye, and her husband, I was encouraging them. I was like, I think you guys should go to the nude beach. I think you guys should go there. Maybe, I don't know. Because the way we saw they used to do in that house, I was like, maybe this will spark some, I don't know what it is. But I was just telling them that I think you should go to the nude beach, that it was a fun experience, that in fact, you don't even have to be nude because this one is even clothing optional. So it wasn't even you have to be nude, but most people generally were. So I was even encouraging them that they should go. So to me, I was so shocked. So this is the silver bullets that his dad was saying that they are holding Paulinus and his friends back from sharing. So because I had gone to the nude beach, and of course I had taken pictures there, I even sent them to Paulinus. This is what Paulinus then went to go and show his father and his family, that I've been attending nude parties. As if as soon as I got to Canada, that's just what I've been doing, going to nude parties every day. And I was just like, again, like I said, this email isn't for me. It's not me you're going to lie and say all this one to that.
Especially when I know that it was like you were beating him off with a stick after sending him off these so-called nudes that
oh my God, Toro. Like, it's funny you're bringing this
thing up. You did appreciate them, so...
Because even as I had already left and I was in Canada, this guy did not give me rest, This guy was disturbing me. I should send him pictures. I should send him images. I should go and buy sex toys and be using them and be sending them to him. And guys, I've said it over and over again. My pregnancies are no joke. This guy would it's always fall on deaf ears. He'll make it seem as if, hey, am I the first person to be pregnant? I'm just exaggerating and all of that. But I had to cut him off. I had to be like, dude, like, I don't have time to be satisfying your sexual needs right now. Like, I'm just trying to chill. I'm just trying to get through this pregnancy. It's not easy for me. Sometimes, as I went to the nude beach that day, sometimes I'll have to be in the house for like 3-4 days at a stretch. I can't go anywhere because I just need all the strength. Sometimes I'll be physically weak, ill. So, of course, I just said, since I've already come to nude beach and I'm already nude, let me just take picture and send it to him now. Let him not come and be harassing me.
So did you know?
Exactly. So I sent him the pictures. Little did I know that that's what the girl now gotta be carrying to his family as evidence that, hey, look at her. She has been attending nude parties. Like, I'm just... So, of course, because like I said, I had such a great experience at the nude beach. I went with a friend, a girlfriend of mine. We both had such a great experience. In fact, it's like we were having so much fun. The mayor of that Toronto island, he happened to be on the beach that day. So he now even came to talk to my friend and I. And he was like, oh, wow, that, he can tell that we're new here, but he's just proud of us, that we seem so free and we were just enjoying ourselves. We went into the water, like we were just having fun. So I was such an advocate. I was telling people, I think you should go. Like, it's a great experience. So I wasn't ashamed, which is why I very comfortably spoke to my dad about it, even spoke to my mom, even encouraged them too. I told them they should go to the nude beach too. Of course, my dad laughed. My mom, she prayed it out of me. She was like, hey, go. But my dad laughed, that no problem. That he even said that he had been. Because my parents had gone on a cruise. You know how sometimes where you go on a cruise ship and they stop at some beaches or something. And he was like, the way my mom gathered herself and ran out of there.
This is obscene.
So again, to now imagine that this is the silver bullet that his family was now threatening my family about. So of course, the man was incensed. He couldn't believe that his threat now didn't work. Because my dad was just like, okay, what else do you have in your arsenal? Is it the nude beach that you're bringing here? But yeah, so this is what he shall put there. And again, it's interesting to me that this guy, he has my nudes. He has videos. He has all sorts. Prior to my even leaving to Canada to have our third child, I made a sex tape for the very first time because he had whined and begged and said, oh, that's in fact, that if I can do this one for him, he will not even disturb me. He will not ask me anything again. Of course, it was a bloody lie. No sooner did I get to Canada, did he already start harassing me again and disturbing me for, I should send him this, I should send him that. But this guy has these things in the palm of his hands. And this person that I know, I won't be surprised if he releases them. In fact, I know for a fact he's been showing people the sex tape, the videos, the pictures. I know he's been showing people, showing some of his guy friends. Like, I'm so disgusted by this guy, But it's got to the point where, like, if you think that because you have these things, I'm not going to say my story, yeah, you got that mind, though. Like, release it. I don't care. Well, anyway, there's even a court order against him releasing them, but knowing the person that I'm dealing with, does that one respect anything? Well, so guys, it's because I love you. I'm risking my nudes coming out. But yeah. So I think the next thing again, under bullying and intimidation as tactics of control, what I mentioned there in my email, he comes back just saying, I mean, again, I've always supported her in everything that she wanted to do. I don't know what she means by I've been bullying her. And if I've been bullying her, it would have been evident that I've been bullying her. That's pretty much what he said. And honestly, me, I don't know what to say to that. Honestly, Toro, do you have anything to say there?
No. I mean, what does one say
like
to that?
Abi, Sela. He has Kuku said his own. So I think the next one we'll just move on to is response to reckless and dangerous behavior as a means of punishment, you know, and I'd specifically mentioned as one thing, this is not all, but one thing is his dangerous driving with myself and the children when he's in a rage. And you can tell that he's doing this to punish me. And he doesn't care that the children are in the car. He doesn't care that the nanny is in the car. He doesn't care that we're all here. Like, he's like, you know, Toro, I think I've mentioned this to you before, but at a point I started to suspect that, is it that this guy is suicidal? Because the dangerousness of the things that he would do.
Right.
It felt like, is it that he's suicidal, or does he get off on that feeling of I'm about to die?
You know, this is interesting because just like I forget what the subheading was, but when he comes out and says, I'm a social drinker, the raging and stuff, you didn't mention drinking. And even just now, you're talking about his frame of mind. You're wondering if, like, his recklessness was alarming to the point that you suspected, like, are you trying to play out some kind of suicidal intent here? In his response, he mentions that you didn't say anything about that in your email. I don't even know if that was a dot that you had connected at that point. But in his response, he comes out and says, yeah, I've never felt suicidal before. And it's like, nobody said that. Same thing with the drinking. Nobody brought up anything about drinking. And you're just kind of
you're already jumping out,
telling on yourself, kind of a thing. So it's interesting that you now say that, you know, the power of intuition, you know, a word of knowledge comes, like, you suspected because, yeah, you're picking it up.
Yeah, because let's even leave this dangerous driving aside, because this one is even corroborated. I interviewed my sister. She was in the car. She was alarmed. You know, this is something that this guy would do just to punish me. It's like, because he's the one behind the wheel, he had total control. And you know, abusers get off on having that total control.
Oh, and this specific behavior, the reckless driving, when, you know, they're whatever, just as a way to needle you, is documented, like, abuser behavior. Even if you want to talk about it more recently in the mainstream, FKA Twigs, when she comes out and talks about her abuse story at the hands of Shia LaBeouf, she talks about that behavior amongst, you know, a host of other reprehensible behaviors. She talks about that behavior specifically, which is just driving off recklessly and dangerously, speeding, you know, cutting corners, to elicit that alarm, that fear in you because of, you know, like you said, wanting to exert control.
You know, I had described, guys, that I would be holding on for dear life and I would just start muttering under my breath, just praying to God, like, God, please just save me, save my children. Don't let us die here. Like, I would just start praying. And so I think he got off on that total control, because what he now even said was that because of his size, because he's a 6'5" guy and our cars were small, he didn't even used to drive. That's why he had a driver and all that, which is a bold-faced lie. Okay, yes, he had a driver and most of the time during the week he wouldn't drive. But on Sundays, the driver didn't work. And when we'd go to church together, it would be him that would drive. Hardly ever was it me that drove. If I drive, that means he didn't follow us to church that day. It will always be him that would drive. And so for him to now come and now be trying to play, I don't know what it is he's trying to do. Is it statistics that I hardly ever drive? And so that means I didn't do this. I'm sorry, but even if you only drive 10 times in a year, if you do dangerous driving, even one of those times, you did it, you still did it. Like, this is not about how often you drive or not. But he just came back with that kind of response that, hey, he doesn't really drive. And so it's not true. And please, I don't even want to get into all of that. But I think the next point I even wanted to make about this is recklessness. It felt like this guy is he that he wants to die or what? Is how this guy is asthmatic and he's AA. And usually when he falls ill, when he gets malaria like this, he will have an asthma attack and it is always pandemonium. And I will be begging this guy, let's go to the hospital. He will grinch at me. He will tell me to get out, that he knows about his body. He knows his health, blah, blah, blah. And I'll just be like, must it be every time that you are sick that we must go and act drama for these people in the hospital? There is no time that this guy has had malaria that we don't show up to the hospital. Literally, this guy on the brink of death. He would literally walk through the door and like collapse. They are running to go and bring oxygen tanko. They are running to go and bring this one. And this thing has happened, and I'm not joking, guys, in the 5 years, because it even happened before we got married, and I was alarmed. He almost died, and in Nigeria again, doing that kind of nonsense. That particular day, the incident that happened before we got married, the oxygen tank that they brought, it didn't have oxygen inside. So they had to go and start running to somewhere where they had stashed some extra oxygen tanks from, and it took a while for them to carry it because it was a huge one. They didn't even find what they could use to pull it. So it was so chaotic. This guy was convulsing. The doctor literally was over him on the bed like that. I think he was giving him CPR or something like that. It was wild. So I'm always telling him, I'm like, dude, let's go and start getting this injection now or something. He'll get angry. He'll tell me he's very busy. He has work to do, that he knows his own body. He knows when he's about to collapse. And I'm just like, but must you collapse though? Can we get to the hospital and already start treatment? This guy will get to the hospital and it will take a whole week. He'll be there on drips. And because of his size, I don't know, his veins are usually very hard to find. Sometimes they will have to put the drip through his leg, through his foot, because they can't even find his vein on his hands. So my point is, you already know that these are all the variables. Number one, you don't take care of your health. You don't eat well. You get bitten anyhow by mosquitoes or whatever. I tried to get us to be sleeping under a mosquito net. He said he doesn't want it. He doesn't like how it looks and all of that. Yeah, AA too. You're asthmatic too. So we'll always go and act drama for them in the hospital. And I'm always so embarrassed because why must he be like this? So I now started to wonder, after the last incident, I was like, maybe he actually wants to die. Or maybe he likes the feeling of
tempting fate, kind of.
Maybe I'm cheating death or something. Because I don't understand why we always have to make a trip to the hospital like that. So that's part of what it is. So the malaria one, that one concerns only him. But of course, with the driving one too, now it's like, it's not just him that he's trying to exert that kind of control over. It's himself and all of us in the car.
The malaria one concerns everyone as well, because if you're not taking care of your health for yourself, at least let something else motivate you, right? But you don't care that you'll be leaving children behind. You don't care that you're leaving your wife behind.
This thing that you're saying now,
gamble with your life like that and their lives and futures.
This guy is even lucky that our hospital was actually in our estates. We live in an estate on the mainland, and the hospital that we went to was inside our estate. Because I've described multiple times that this guy is huge. This guy is like 6'4", 6'5". And he is hefty. Like, he's not lanky. He's like thick, like an NFL linebacker. And all these, he's collapsing and all of that. Toro, this is in the middle of the night. Sometimes it would be like 2, 3 a.m. in the morning. The guy will just wake me up that he feels like he's about to. So in peace times, when I'm telling him that, look, this is your health. If you actually collapse right here in this house now, I can't carry you. I can't lift you. Before we start running around and trying to get people to, let's carry you. First of all, to even put you inside the car, you can't fit. Especially if he's like limp already. You can't fit into that small car now with your height, with your size. So, and that's what I'll be trying to get him. But the guy will just rebuff me and just talk about how he knows his body, he knows his health, that even his parent self knew how to maneuver him. That's what's the big deal? So again, I just started to feel like maybe this guy actually does have a death wish, because I don't understand why he would be leaving his health to almost want to get into some sort of crisis before we're now all like rushing to the hospital. Then I have to come be waking up the nanny. Okay, we'll now leave the nanny and the boys in the house in the middle of the night. We'll now go to the hospital. We'll now be there from 3 a.m. Someone says I won't be coming back to the house until like 7, 8 a.m. We'll be there. The doctors are pumping this into his body. They are bringing oxygen masks. They are doing this. They are putting him on one asthma machine. I don't even know what they call it. That's just all they are doing. They are trying to find a vein. And then he will not start convulsing. You start shaking. Like that thing. And it will be so scary. I'll be so terrified. I'm like, is he about to die right now? There was
so
one
that's what I
particular
mean.
incident.
It doesn't affect only him. Definitely it's disruptive to everyone too, and dysregulating as well.
I also feel like it's just part of the taking up space, like the whole family setup. It just has to just be about him and saving him if he's well, if he's not well, like, you know, the whole day would just be so disrupted when we could have avoided all of this altogether.
Right.
Could have gotten on drugs sooner. You could have started the injections sooner. You don't need to get to this point. Then he addresses my last point, which is the financial neglect, financial abuse. And I think this is where he spent a huge chunk of his time, because he first of all started off about how he bought me a car. His father too bought me a car. Then he now broke down that I had 7 domestic staff taking care of me, waiting on me hand and foot. Then he now brought out some sort of budget and put 150K. That this was the budget for food. And Tisha just went on to how he had encouraged me to do business. He had opened a cold room for me, and I never visited it one day. And then eventually the business packed up. So it was a massive loss for him on the business. Then he now spoke about how I was so lavish that I always insisted on having our children in Canada, and, you know, without any care or concern for him or whatever. And I think finally, he just basically just tried to paint me as some sort of brat, some sort of princess, that I was living this lavish lifestyle and I'm such an ingrate. And even the wording, you almost was even sounding like, oh, I was some sort of gold digger, that maybe he raised me up from some backwater place somewhere and he's the one that has elevated my life. That was just the rambling that he did there. And anybody that knows us intimately, they don't even need me. They can call bullshit on this. Is it that our 2-bedroom apartment that we had 7 staff working for me, and he listed all their names there? This one, that one. Put their names, put their salary. These are people that work in his office. Oh. And again, which is why I said that this email cannot be for me. It couldn't have been for me. Yes, he addressed it to me, but this is to the gallery. This is for people that don't know us. I had 7 staff. Like, I'm not even going to get into that. Guys, please, I only had 1 nanny. And I'm so grateful for the work that she did for me. Honestly, first of all, I speak about the level of depravity in this place. Like, so her salary wasn't much. And it's something that I kept on working to increase it, especially when I started working. I increased it. But what I couldn't pay her in salary, I paid her in kind in so many other different ways. And honestly, we supported each other in that house. Like, we held each other up, because it took a while for me to realize that she was the second victim in that house. It became a case of the 2 of us were just trying to maneuver this man and his abuse. And
right, because he would lash out at her as well.
Yeah.
So
the glass he couldn't give me, he'll give her. The one he wants to give her, he'll now give it to me. You know, sometimes do the whole, hey, you're not training her well, you know, whatever goes he wants to give her, he'll now find a way to give it to me. So the 2 of us, honestly, we really maneuvered quite well, I think, in that house. And if not for her, I probably would have broken under this man's hand, because the things that I had to do in that house, both the one that they're calling man's work and the one that they're calling woman's work, because that's what he would say. I'm a traditional man. I don't do this. Hey, you need to cook for me. That was what he used to hide under, that he's a traditional man. He's misogyny. He sold everything. But no problem. Thank God I had my nanny. So she actually did a bulk of the domestic work in that house, the cooking, the cleaning. Thank God. And the actual, you know, some of the heavy lifting in terms of taking care of the boys, their parents and things like that.
Yeah.
But it was such a collaborative effort, because this guy did not lift a finger to do shit in that house. if it's to buy fuel, if it's to fuel the generator, if it's to, what's that thing? Oh, the gas cooker. If it's to do that one, if it's to deal with artisans, like I mentioned, that house, something was always, either the AC will not work today, or then tomorrow somewhere is leaking. Or at some point, the neighbors downstairs, their entire bedroom flooded because of our bathroom. It was just a constant, we're patching this one here in this house, another one is breaking there. And that's just how the house was. I mentioned how the guy went to go, and because that house was small, 2-bedroom apartment. And of course, in 2020, our marriage was so bad. In the middle of a pandemic, this guy brought workers to go and partition. We no longer had a dining room area in that 2-bedroom apartment. That dining room, he partitioned it. He made it the children's room. So I had my own room. He had his own room. The children had their room. In the middle of that 2-bedroom apartment. So you can see how tight and stuffy the whole place was. Right. Then he went to go and create some sort of shed extension, some wooden extension to the house that rattled something, and before we knew it, we had a rat and cockroach infestation in the house. We did not know where they were coming from. They just kept on coming. We are killing them, but they are still coming into the house. So it became such a hot mess. But I thank God that I had my nanny there, and the two of us, we maneuvered. And it really pains me because before I could come back from Canada with my 3rd child, this guy had sent her packing. He had found some way, some excuse, and then he had brought some stooge to the house. His own mother had brought her. I didn't know this girl from anywhere or whatever. So bottom line, he put all these people, but I'm not even going to acknowledge it because it's a bold-faced lie. I only had one nanny and I'm grateful for her. And I'm glad that she was there because there were even so many other things that I didn't even know that she knew because I was just always trying to cover up this guy's shame, but I didn't even know that she witnessed some of his abuse.
Right.
There were some that I knew that she witnessed, but there were some that, because my mom had called her where she was in her village and tried to verify that, what was happening to my daughter in that house? And then when the girl started talking and my mom reported back, I'm just like, wow, I didn't even know she witnessed that when that happened. So I even became a little shy again that, oh my God, like this girl must have been looking at me like, anyway, I'm trying not to internalize shame. So I'm just going to leave that one alone. But I just had one nanny.
Just goes to show you how bad it was that even that despite you thinking that you are covering things up, it's just so much that it spills out so much that anybody in any kind of close vicinity would pick it up. So
yeah,
it's the nature of it.
Then, of course, he mentions 150K and all of that he was giving me that every month and that he never demanded the receipt. He never demanded an account of it. And that my salary where I was working, he never requested for it. Like, this guy is just so raz. Like, okay, so basic shit. Now you want a pat on the back that, oh, you never demanded the receipt on the 150K you were giving me every month. This is just to show even just the level of, like, quote, he doesn't even have shame. The 150K for 3 adults and 2 children. In his mind, he really does think he was actually doing something.
Right.
He doesn't even realize my salary, I had to be putting it into the house. I mentioned that my parents were sending me money every month. Even after I'd gotten married, my parents continued to send me money every month to just try and plug things here and there as much as I could. Anyway, so he mentioned that I've delved into the financial abuse and I break down that 150K and, what I had to do, turning water into wine with all of that. So then he mentions again that his father and himself bought me a car. This one really, really pained me, let me not lie, because I've described in the financial episode just the car that I was driving. This guy gave me this car sometime in 2017, I believe. And the way he even gave me the car, it was grudgingly. He was like, he had brought a car for his office for them to be using for marketing. But he's going to give me the car because, of course, now I had a son. I brought a car seat from Canada, which he did not want me to bring. But I'm just like, please, my son is going to sit down inside a car seat. I brought it. So, of course, I needed the car to put the car seat inside. So he gave me this jalopy type car that had rollers. That car was at least from the 90s. I'm not joking. Maximum, if I'm being generous, maybe 2003. But if I could state that car was from the 90s. So I was just managing with that car jejely. That 2021 was a hot year, actually. So many things. Only for 2021, I'm busy trying to just get through my nausea and my vomiting and my morning sickness. He comes home, he tells me that his dad bought me a car. And I'm like, really? Why? He said, hey, he doesn't know that he just got to his parents' house and his dad said, hey, he bought me a car and this is the car and everything. So, okay. I found a way. I dragged myself from my bed and I think I went to go and see the car. I don't even think I saw it immediately. I think I went to go and see it the following day because honestly, I was just so sick. So, bottom line, when I saw this car, like the way I was so upset, Toro, because I had been managing this, my jalopy car, the way it was. And this man had been telling me about how he's going to buy me a Land Cruiser, all this one, all that one. And me, I used to be like, okay, no problem. When the Land Cruiser come, we'll see. I was all the more incensed when this second jalopy now came again to this house. I'm just like, hey, God, now. This man has just moved me from one jalopy to another. This car required such extensive work that I never drove that car one day because I was pregnant. I left the country sometime in May 2021. This car, they had to change the entire insides, all the engine, the AC. There was nothing that was working about this car. It was like what the man bought was a frame. The internal work of the car needed a complete overhaul. In fact, Paulinus was even complaining that now he has to buy a new engine. He had everything in the car had to be changed completely. Even the exterior, they had to wrap, paint. Me, I was just even so annoyed again because I Googled the car. Like the car wasn't the kind of car that I would have picked for myself. I Googled it. This was a car that had been discontinued at least 10 years ago. I now had to now be sending the man, thank you very much, sir, for doing this. But in my head, I'm just like, Kai, this guy has come and spoil show now. This Paulinus has been telling me he's going to buy me Land Cruiser. And now he's going to use this car, this other car that his dad has bought as an excuse not to buy a new car. And the thing was already becoming, let me not lie, people, like I don't cuckoo have a choice. And I think, like I've said before in previous episode, like I can drive Benz, I can maneuver with whatever it is that I'm given in life or whatever. So I'd been driving the car, but the car was actually dangerous. Aside from it being embarrassing, it was dangerous. I remember the car would stop multiple times. The engine, we're constantly changing engine. There was a time that some guy flagged me down. He said, Madam, you're going to get into an accident. These tires, you need to change them. The guy was so concerned for me. So I even stopped by, you know how they usually have vulcanizers on the side of the road. So I asked, I said, bros, help me check this, my tire. Somebody stopped me and everything. Even that one too was shouting that, Madam, this is your tire, you must change ammo. If not, your car go turn for road. You better go change this, your tire. Everything. And it still took this Paulinus over a month because I'd come home. I was so concerned. I'm just like, dude, like people are telling me that my tires are bad. And this Paulinus has a driver. Like, what is his driver doing? It's only his Oga that one really cared about. The guy doesn't check my car, doesn't look at my tires, doesn't see if I need to change tire or not change tire. So this thing that we're just even helping you manage, he now jumped into his email to brag and say, hey, I bought her a car. And even his father too bought me a car. An outsider reading this email might think that I'm just some sort of ingrate that they were pampering. And I was just such a princess. So again, why lie? This email is not for me. So I think there's one particular point I actually want to make about this whole car issue. Because this Paulinus' dad bought me this car in 2021. This was the year his wife was turning 60. If there was anybody that needed a car, I know my own car was a jalopy, but his own mom's car, Omo.
She could have used a replacement.
Why? So I also started to feel like, am I some sort of pawn in this thing here? Why is he buying me a car when he knows his wife is in desperate need of a car? He should have bought his own wife a car. You know what I mean? So like, again, this man and his family, I don't know what is going on with them there. They are a very bizarre bunch. And it's unfortunate that it feels like they're what's that word? They're enmeshed. It's like they are all in it together.
Describes kind of their behavior where it feels like you're fighting all of them and just not him. And that as well documented as his behavior is, that they know would still like paint you out to be the liar.
Mm-hmm. And then I guess when I use that term enmesh, it feels like they have each other's back, but at the same time, it feels like they hate each other too. Because there's a lot of weird shit that goes on where it's like, okay, why you're buying me a car, but your wife needs a car. But then when shit goes down, all of you are like, hold hands together and then you face your gun towards me. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, guys, I don't want to confuse you guys. So I think that's all I will say about that. But I think the last point I want to then address was my insisting that, I had to have my children in Canada. I've already spoken extensively about this. I make no apologies. And I'm not going to let someone try and paint that as, I was being extravagant. When I'm a citizen, you're a citizen. I have all my families in Canada. I can very comfortably and affordably have my child in Canada. I pay taxes in Canada. I mean, for what reason should I now not take that opportunity when there are people that are paying heavily to have their children? Because again, we've spoken about the mortality rates in Nigeria, the maternal mortality rates in Nigeria. Like, Nigeria is wild. We rank almost dead last on the list. I think there's something that the UN prints out or publishes about the mortality rates of countries, pregnant women and all of that. It is appalling where Nigeria ranks. And so I definitely understand all that Thanksgiving that happens in Nigeria when a woman goes in and comes out. It is warranted. It is warranted. Finally, he mentions this cold room business that he claims to have opened up for me. Honest to God, guys, I don't know anything about this business. I was busy minding my own business. So in 2020, there was all this pitter-patter about possible lockdown and everything. And I've mentioned already, I worked for a tech startup. This was a crazy time for us. So we were trying to pivot. We were trying to make sure that our company doesn't die. We're not even up to a year old. I was one of the early employees. So only for this guy to show up one time and say that, he was trying to capitalize on, apparently, I guess there was some sort of scarcity, like,
food shortage,
the food shortage or whatever. So he saw it. And so he was not trying to capitalize on the food shortage. The guy just went, he started buying freezers. He bought this one, that one. And then he was like, he's setting up a chicken business. He wants to start selling chicken during this lockdown period or whatever. And I remember telling him, I'm just like, I feel like you're in over your head on this. I tried to caution him. I tried to tell him that I don't think you should do this business. Like, there's still so much that is uncertain. I think your startup costs are much more than you expect, generator, lights, but everything that you have to sort out, everything. But he just kind of rebuffed me as if I didn't know what I was talking about. He brought chickens all the way from Ekiti and then he killed all of them there. So trying to freeze them, bring them. I think lockdown already started to happen. So I think they were not even allowing movement of things. So there was just so much in the air. So, but me, I hands off because every time I tried to make a suggestion and tell him that, look, I don't think this, he rebuffed me and made it seem as if I was just being such a hater. So I'm very confused as to why he's now telling the whole world that he opened a cold room business for me when he never consulted me before he opened it. And by the time he did, I tried to caution him that I don't think this is the right business. Like, you're an architect. Why are you constantly running from one business to another? This is yet another business again in livestock, dealing in livestock. When it seemed like things I was saying was falling on deaf ears, I left him alone and I faced the one that was actually paying me, the business that actually paid me. So he's now incensed here and now telling the world in his email that I never visited the cold room, even that he opened the business for me. I never visited, and eventually he was forced to close it. I think this thing is actually the overarching theme about this guy.
Just redirecting blame.
He just cannot seem to take accountability for any goddamn thing. There's not one thing that is ever his fault. Because how he has managed to paint this cold room business as my fault now is very shocking to me. And this is what I've been dealing with, guys. Not one thing is ever his fault. He would take the greatest leaps to make something my fault. Whether it makes sense or whether there's logic behind it or not, he will find a way.
It's scapegoating. That's what it is. Yeah.
So I think these were his responses to the things that I had said in my email, in my own very brief and succinct email. He had, of course, in very colorful language, very scandalous words, responded. And this is what I've attempted to kind of just paint a better picture, a complete picture, the truth for you guys to hear. But then he now opened a whole new chapter in his email where he now put, I think he had mentioned it, further reflections or something like that, or my reflections. This is where he now really, 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 when you can tell when someone is really just trying to this is where he now laid into me. This is where he spoke about my body, spoke about my looks. He just went in. And I think we'll just try and just...
some really just such disparaging and just uneducated things to say about mental health as well. That was just so surprising and off-putting.
You know what, Tara? It's so funny because, guys, remember I told you that about less than a week after I had left on the 21st, by the 27th, himself and his family had run to a court in Ekiti to file for divorce, and then filed an ex parte motion requesting for custody of all 3 children, including my 6-week-old infant at the time. 6 to 8-week-old infant at the time. So when I compare his documentation, is everything that he puts in this is further reflections. So before a court in Ekiti, this guy had gone to declare that I was a member of the LGBTQ community, that I'm an atheist, I'm a bra-burning feminist, and that I have serious mental health issues. And based off of those 4 things, he's requesting for custody of all 3 children for himself and his mother. Then they now attached all his mother's certifications, her nursing and midwifery degrees, that she's capable of caring for the children because one thing. And which is why I can't let his family go and say, my issue is with Paulinus and Paulinus alone. Because if they claimed to have sense, there's no way any of this shit will happen the way it happened. They are complicit. In fact, they are active participants. They threatening my parents, all of that. They are active participants. They decided to enter the same shokoto with this man.
Yeah, they're literally taking the stand in court on his behalf. So
yeah, his mom entering the witness box, his 2 sisters saying this and that. My goodness, all I just said is I don't do again now, Abi. I don't want to marry. But the way they've come after me. So I think I'll start off with the mental health, his allegations about my mental health and all of that. It really is just unfortunate because if anybody should actually be taking mental health seriously, it really should be this man and his family. But let me focus on Paulinus. Guys, remember I said that what got me to seeing a therapist in the first place was because I actually wanted to do couples therapy because I said this is too much. There's no way this is what marriage looks like. There's no way other people, this is what they're dealing with in marriage. I think we need to see a therapist. This guy absolutely refused. He just shut me down, got angry because, when you keep trying to have the same conversation and they shut you down, the next time you try, they get angry. The next time you try silent treatment, you just straight up ignore me, not even answer me. So I said, okay, you know what? We won't do couples therapy. It's okay. You don't want to do it. That's fine. I am going to start therapy. So I started. This was in 2020. This is after the incident where he physically and verbally, abused me. Because I can't continue like this. So I started seeing a therapist and she was amazing. She really she helped me get through, honestly. And so I remember, sometimes I'll come and give this guy feedback. At a point in 2021, she was like, she would actually like to just talk to him and see or whatever. That is when this guy now dropped that massive bomb on me. That's he doesn't like dealing with therapists. So that's how one time in Toronto, one therapist tried to diagnose him as bipolar. And that is where I've already mentioned this before on one of our previous episodes, but my goodness, this explains the chaos. It explains the peaks and valleys, the highs, the lows, the starting one business, he starts another business, the whirlwind that I've been on.
Danger as well, because if he's that dismissive of his diagnosis, then he's not treating it.
He's not treating it. From what I understand about being bipolar and things like that, you should be on medication. You're not supposed to joke with that thing at all. It's dangerous, not just for you, but for people around you too.
Right.
And so it actually pains me that this is his attitude about mental health. And he's someone that really should be taking this thing seriously. It is also all the more appalling. And guys, honestly and truly, it's very difficult for me to tell my story because sometimes I feel like, oh, am I exposing other people? You know, am I talking about things that I shouldn't? But in order to tell my story, unfortunately, like I do have to tell the whole story. Some other people's stories are going to come out too, and it is what it is. But you know, thankfully, what I'm about to say right now, I'm not the first person saying it publicly. The person themselves actually published a book and released it. So this is his sister now. His sister is like clinically diagnosed. This is someone that's had, as at the time I was leaving the marriage, as at the time I left the marriage, I don't know about anymore. She's had 3 mental breakdowns. This is someone that has been committed to a psych ward. And for Paulinus to have this disgusting attitude about mental health, knowing fully well
to weaponize it as such,
that his sister struggles like this. And again, guys, I know this can be touchy for some people. Again, I thought really hard about this, but I feel comfortable because she herself is very open about it. She talks about it very freely on her social media. She wrote a book, it's published. You can even buy it on Amazon. So I'm not putting her out. I'm just saying that like, this is someone that he and his sister are only a year apart. And he's trying to get his digs at me. He's forgetting that he has someone close beside him that he has just ridiculed too. Because guys, his email is appalling. And I'm sorry if his attempt was to make me feel shame. I feel no shame about having a therapist. She's been amazing. And my goodness, boy, have I needed her in this time since I've left even this marriage. So that is his opener into his reflections. He tries to paint this disgusting picture of me and my mental health as if I was literally just hanging on and needed all the help in the world to put one foot in front of the other. I just could not exist.
Or swinging from one extreme to another.
And again, this is just him
projecting all sorts of crises and just, it was...
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's all I'll say about him mentioning that. And then the next thing he kind of went into was, again, his digs at me as a woman, my looks, my body. I look like a man. Because I cut my hair, I was no longer attractive to him, even down to something petty like, I think he mentioned in there that, he opened a business for me. Another business I did not ask for. Say he opened a business for me to start selling black soap. That's because I was self-conscious about my body scent. In the email, he put body odor. And so he opened the business for me. And I'm just like, my goodness. In his mind, he's trying to put me out and embarrass me. But what is there to be embarrassed about? It is not a secret that when you live intimately with somebody, like husband and wife, that, it's not every time that somebody will be smelling like roses and flowers. Like sometimes you catch them on some days or whatever. So whether it's mouth odor, whether it's body odor, whatever, it's not just me, even me, like he too, but that's what it is when you're married or whatever. So for him to not try and now bring that out there as if, I'm just some sort of person that has BO and wherever I go, I'm just disrupting the peace, which is a fucking lie. It's not true. So again, it's just like, where does one go in even responding to this kind of email? The next thing he mentioned again was that, my feminism, that he married me in church, that this is not what he married, that I'm not domesticated. He used those words exactly, that she's not domesticated, that
a homemaker.
That she's not domesticated, she's not a homemaker. And why did he have to be paying for all this help? The 7 people that he has claimed that he's paying for all this help to wait on me hand and foot. I make no apologies, honestly and truly, guys, about needing the help. I am working. I have 2 children. This one that does not lift a finger to do anything at home. Does he want to kill me? And so I took a stand. I'm like, look, the domestics in this house, I cannot. And so my nanny was awesome in that respect. And, she picked up the slack there. But unbeknownst to me, this guy was harboring all this resentment that, oh, I was not the one physically cooking. I was not the one physically cleaning, which is a freaking lie because I'll be the one that will clean this guy's room. Even after I had moved into my own room, I was still cleaning his room before he went to go and hire for himself a caretaker, a personal caretaker that was taking care of him. But I was the one, I was cleaning his room. I was doing his laundry because I used to be so embarrassed. Like, I didn't want my nanny to see this guy's rubbish. Remember, guys, how I mentioned, especially that toilet, I used to be so embarrassed. So I didn't want her to see him like that. So I am the one that used to clean his room and clean his bathroom. And that's why he ended up getting a caretaker because he wanted me to be cleaning it every day. I said, excuse me, oh, please. I have a job. So of course I'll clean it. When I'm cleaning my own room, I'll clean his room. But he now eventually got a caretaker that I would clean his room every single day. And this guy would take massive dumps in the toilet, whether he flush, whether he doesn't, he would just live in such a state. But I think he liked that he had somebody literally cleaning up his own shit. That's what he liked. And that's what he wanted to get me to do. And I'm just like, no, you're a grown-ass human being. So I put a boundary there. I was like, okay, I'll get to it when I get to it. But even that, the fact that I had to.
Right.
But he's now here in his email mentioning she was not domesticated. Like, such a ras guy. What the fuck is domesticated? And these things that I'm saying, guys, this is reflections. I'm not joking. They appear in his court documents. And these are public. Court documentation is public. So anybody can go and verify in Ekiti State, the High Court. You will see everything this guy has written in there. So in his reflections, again, this is where he mentioned about my feminism. And this is where he now spoke about the fact that I had said I was going to tie my tubes. Which, again, just his backward, just rasness. Like, what really is the big deal about timing? We already have 3 children. You are barely putting hand to take care of these 2. And as a woman, I decided that I'm done. I have 3 boys. I'm done. And just his lack of care. My pregnancies are always so difficult on me. Everybody knows this. And I've tried. I've done 3. Like, what is it? So even when I was pregnant, especially when I was even very, very sick with my 3rd pregnancy, I'd already been announcing that, after this one, I am done. No, I am done. I am done. I am done. Even before I got pregnant, because that was a huge argument, because I was like, I wanted 3. So I already knew that I wasn't doing past 3. So after I had my child, I was already speaking to the doctors about what my options were about permanently, putting an end to this. Because understanding the person that I was with, I didn't want to put in an IUD. Because I felt like, my God, this guy might wear me down and actually manipulate me into having a final child. And I didn't want that. So I wanted a permanent solution so that everybody, to your tendo Israel, like nothing is happening again.
I mean, vasectomy is also an option, but...
No, but I didn't trust this guy. I didn't trust that he would actually do it. I couldn't put it past him to say he did it and he didn't actually do it just to trap me. So I'm like, I'm tying my tubes. If you decide to get a vasectomy, even better. The 2 of us, let us end it here, But Aisha just knew that I was taking power into my own hands and I was going to tie my tubes. And I told him about it. But I made sure to inform him. I wasn't asking permission, but I was informing him.
All right.
So what I didn't understand was why he was so incensed to now include it here in his email that it's part of my feminism. These are the issues that he is dealing with. That's my feminism that is tormenting him in the marriage. Because for me, I'm just like, what would he have preferred? Because what his own mother said to me, this one is not them say. What she said to me was she waited for her own husband to travel. Then she went to go and tie her tube secretly behind his back. Unfortunately for her, somehow the man found out and it became such an embarrassment for all of them. His dad, Paulinus' dad, showed up to the hospital and wanted to fight the doctor. And it was so embarrassing for her, Paulinus' dad, the doctor, everybody. The guy was incensed. So when she was telling me that story, I'm just like, okay, so is that what you're advising me to do too? For me to go and be tying tubes behind this one's back? I'm just like, no, I would rather tell him, let him do whatever. But Asha Kuku told him, why should I now be sneaking and be doing all that one, And I think in a sense that my silent defiance is what Paulinus always hated. As much as he would overwhelm me with his chaos, as much as he would overwhelm me with his anger, with his abuse, I would break down, I would be crying, I'll be scared. I'll fear this guy. But in my heart, when I decide that I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And so he hated that no matter the chaos he would bring on me, the vitriol, the anger, I would still, especially if I've decided something, I would still do it. A lot of the abuse that he got away with were a lot of the time on issues I didn't really have an opinion either way. So he got away with a lot of with me. But on any issue that I know that I had decided for myself, he could never get his way. And again, it's just the greed of an abuser. He already gets his way on goddamn 99% of the things that are happening here. But that 1% that you're holding out, they want that one too.
Yep.
And they will not rest until he gets it. And which is why I'm not surprised he mentioned the fact that I had cut my hair. Because that's another area too that I wanted to cut my hair. And this guy was angry and incensed about it. He was like, I need his permission to cut my hair. That's not how he married me. And so I cannot cut my hair. And I'm just like, excuse me. In my head, I'm just like, you, the way you look right now, is that how I married you? So please, what is it? So I still cut my hair. And I kid you not, guys. I hate that I have to say this, but I'm not exaggerating. Every single day, this guy will look me in my face and tell me that he hates my hair. He hates the way that I look and that I look like a man and that I'm unattractive. Every single day, without fail, he will find a way to say it. Don't look beautiful. See the way you look. But I just liked how I looked now. I've always liked how I looked, but I actually liked how edgy I looked now. So it didn't bother me. He couldn't convince me, but he hurt me every day by saying those things to me because I'm like, why? And one day I took a picture and I posted it on my social media. And I'm not exaggerating, guys. The most comments, the most likes I'd ever received on social media up until that point was that picture of when I'd cut my hair. And that's how I was just like, can you see?
Yeah, the abuse is the point. It is. That was his intention. It's horrible.
It really is. I believe he mentions about saying that I'm an atheist. Honestly and truly, I don't know. At no point have I ever told this man I'm an atheist. And it's unfortunate that, again, you're spewing things out from thin air.
And things that, okay, even if you were, yeah.
Yeah, but Toro, remember I told you, these are the things that are in his documents before he cut in Ekiti.
Right, yeah.
In the legal landscape of Nigeria, let them hear that a woman is an atheist. You know what I mean? Like this guy was just, he was just trying to destroy me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, I admit, and I've said it multiple times on this podcast, I'm not as religious, quote unquote, as I used to be back then. But right now, I actually won't feel closer to God because I've left like what I was doing then, as religious as I was. If I could describe it, it felt more like mechanics. Right now, I feel a more authentic draw to God. So that might look different from, if I'm kneeling down and, because he actually put it in his email that, no, not one day did I see her kneel down to pray, which, my goodness, I went to Redeem and I went to a Cosmopolitan Redeem church. He grew up in a Methodist church. I know in traditional churches like that, Methodist, Anglican, I know they do a lot of kneeling. But that's not how I grew up. I didn't do a lot of kneeling to pray, especially the church that I went to. So the fact that he now put that, because he saw me kneel down to pray, again, all this sensationalizing things so that, I don't know, the people that he has sent this email to can also be alarmed that, not one day did she kneel down. Like, what exactly is it? You're not there policing somebody's spiritual life. Of which, again, guys, with everything that I've said about this man and everything that he did, is he the one to be throwing stones? About whether or not somebody is religious or not. Like, please. Anyway, so I think that's all I'll say about that. Of course, he also threw some other petty stones that the children were not well taken care of. They were looking unkempt. Their clothes were like this. They spoke like this. Me, I ignore it because my children are beautiful. I'm proud of them. They are wonderful boys. They were raised, honestly, under some harsh conditions. And I do mention that is some of my biggest regrets in that, like, the financial abuse I endured in the hands of this man, it pains me that my children had to suffer that. And so mine is just even his
and then even the toxic environment too.
The toxic
to have an individual
environment
like that as their father.
Somebody raging and angry and just all of that dysregulated like that. It pains me that that's the environment that they were exposed to, but I'm glad that it was only for a short while. And we've had enough time to course correct. Like in the time that we've been away from this man, my goodness, the changes. So, but mine is just even the lack of self-awareness. You say your children were looking like this, like that. What did you do about it then?
Mm-hmm. And then if you're also religious, whatever, this religion that you're yelling about, maybe they said the man is the head. Why aren't you taking the spiritual leadership to call your family to kneel down and pray then, if that's it?
Why aren't you doing all that?
Yeah.
Like, if you saw that your children were looking unkempt, why didn't you ever increase the budget for the family from 150K?
Mm-hmm.
150K that we were using, is that 150K that will fuel my car, that will buy groceries? That 150K is what will fuel generator. That 150K is what will pay for internet, pay for DSTV, pay for everything. Pay for salary too, for my nanny. He saw that his children were looking unkempt. He didn't do anything about it. I've already delved into this under the financial abuse episode where I had to be strategic in how I spent on my family, in the kinds of food we ate, in the kind of experiences we had, the kind of life we lived. Thank God when I started working in 2019, I could ease up the ridiculousness of our lives a little bit, but it was still tough to do. And so I think for the most part, we've
covered it.
We've covered everything on here from Paulina's to everything's anything else worthy of mentioning. It was tough, honestly.
Yeah.
Toro, do you have anything to add to say on that?
No, I think like to platform this anymore is overkill. To just say again, he did not have anything of substance in response to the seriousness of your email. And this just kind of just made a mess and a mockery of things and is indicative and reflective of who this person is. So
yeah, like I said, massive deflections. Not one thing did he take accountability for. Not one thing did he even say, okay, maybe this one. You know,
yeah, he deployed the Darvo technique. And this is something that is like documented behavior of abusers, especially when they're confronted point blank with what they've done and with their behavior. And what they will do is they will deny the behavior. They'll attack the individual who is pointing out the behavior. Then they'll reverse the role of victim and offender and victimize themselves instead. And this, as superfluous as it was, as overly flowery and long and longer was, it essentially was him just doing that.
Victimizing himself. So can you say a Darvo technique?
Yeah. So
D
you deny. D for deny. A for attack the person who's confronting you. Then RVO, reverse victim and offender roles. So it's now the abused person that's, are you the victim here then? You know what I mean? It's
that's essentially what he, in his email, he was the victim.
Yeah.
And, you know, he went all out to really paint himself out as such. And for me, as someone, as a warrior, as a survivor, I've just had to just be like, you know what? The people that I need to believe me. And that is all that matters. Anybody that believes anything in this, his email, or doesn't believe me or whatever, they were never in my corner, and it is what it is.
Or if he's able to recruit them by attacking your credibility with false accusations, then, you know,
they were never in my corner.
Good riddance.
And it is what it is. Like, yeah. I don't care. Bottom line is I am free and I will never be in bondage again. And that's, my friends, deserves a serious hallelujah.
Indeed. So yeah, I think we can wrap this up here. I think the next episode, we said that you were going to speak directly to his individual family members' behavior toward you.
And their role in all this chaos again.
Yeah,
and so we'll delve deeper.
Escape.
Yeah, we'll delve deeper into, you know, members of his family, people that I trusted, people that I really actually loved, people that I thought were my family too. And how I just wasn't expecting that 180 turn. And thank God I have my own family. Thank God they did not fall my hand. So we'll get into that in the next episode. So take care, guys.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys. Bye. My discernment about what I am facing has made me a target, but I must nonetheless speak up. Make no mistake, This is still a live and ongoing issue, and myself, my children, and loved ones continue to be in danger as a result of my coming forward with the truth. I want it on record that should any calamity befall any one of us, my abuser and his threatening family should be the first people held as persons of interest.
Authenticity Warrior is available everywhere you listen to podcasts and is at Authenticity Warrior across all social media platforms. Please feel free to like and share this podcast. Thanks for listening.